The modal verb of English are a small class of auxiliary verbs used mostly to express modality. So the modal verbs are always the part of the auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verb stands for the helping verbs. The principal English modal verbs are can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will and would. But at the same time, certain other verbs are sometimes but not always classed as modals. Remember always that point. These include ought, had better, dare and need. Verbs which share only some of the characteristics of the principal modals are sometimes called quasi-modals, semi-modals and pseudo-modals. Our main point is modals have the following properties. So what are the properties of modals in English language? They do not inflect. That means they do not have always the inflection. They do not add the ending es in the third person singular. They are we can examine the examples. The defective. They are defective. They are not used as infinitives or participles. The other point is, the next point is, they function as auxiliary verbs, that is helping verbs. They have the syntactic, that is making sentences syntactic properties associated with auxiliary verbs in English. So we can go through the use of modal verbs. Modal verbs are always used to express functions such as permission, ability, obligation, prohibition, lack of necessity, advice, probability and possibility. Look at the modals. Modals in the present and the past. Generally speaking, modals in the past have the following forms. What are they? They can be used as modal plus have plus past participle. Don't forget this, modal plus have plus past participle. Example, in the present tense, you should see a doctor. That is the present form. In the past form, you should have seen a doctor. Look at the usage of must. Must will have a certain idea that it is the strong obligation. So we can say the example, you must stop, you must stop when the traffic lights turn red. You must stop. Must is a strong obligation. So must have other meaning, that the logical conclusion is also there. That is certainty is also there. So we can say he must be very tired. He has been working all day long. So he must be very tired. So must not. So here it is must. Then we have to go to must not, negative form, that is prohibition. Must is always strong obligation. Must not is prohibition. That is, you must not smoke in the hospital. You must, that is a prohibition. So another auxiliary verb, another modal is can. Can will have the meanings of ability, permission and possibility. What is ability? Ability is I can swim. I can swim. That is my ability. But can will have ability, permission and possibility. What is permission? Permission is can I use your phone? That is permission. Can I use your phone? And what is, you have the meaning of possibility. The possibility is smoking can cause cancer. Then our next helping verb, that is could. Modal, that is could. Could will have the meaning polite permission. Polite permission. So we can always use could as excuse me, could I just say something? That could can be used. Then possibilities also here. Possibilities, it could rain tomorrow. It's a possibility. So our modal can, could, after that may. May is also a modal. Next, permission. May I use your phone please? Then possibility or probability is also here. May will have the meaning possibility and probability. It may rain tomorrow. It may rain tomorrow. Here it is could. In the case of could, the possibilities also was also here. It could rain tomorrow. But here it may rain tomorrow. Then might. Might is also a modal. Might will have the meaning polite permission. Polite permission. Whenever a polite permission occurs, we can use might. That is the meaning. So might I suggest an idea? Might I suggest an idea? Then possibility and probability is also here. I might go on holiday to Australia next year. Then next, need not. Need not is also here. It is also a modal. A lack of necessity. Need not means lack of necessity or absence of obligation. That is, for example, I need not buy tomatoes. There are plenty of tomatoes in the fridge. So I need not buy tomatoes. What is the reason? There are plenty of tomatoes in the fridge. In the usage of should or ought to, there is only 50% obligation. For example, I should or I ought to see a doctor. I have a terrible headache. That's an advice. For example, another example is that you should or you ought to revise your lessons. That is the logical conclusion. For example, you should or ought to be very tired. He has been working all day long. The other model is had better. So many students are making mistakes by the usage of had better. Had better, the meaning of had better is advice. Example, you had better revise your lessons. You had better revise your lessons, not to your lessons. Had better to. There is no usage of to in had better. Remember always that. So we can consider the difference between must and have to. What is the difference between must and have to? Must and have to are modal verbs in English that we know. This will guide you to the proper usage. So we can examine the usage of must. Must is to make a logical deduction based on evidence. It indicates that the speaker is certain about something. For example, it has rained. It has rained all day. It must be very wet outside. It must be very wet outside. The weather is fantastic. The weather is fantastic in California. It must a lot fun to live there. Must has the other meaning, that is must is also used to express a strong obligation. What is a strong obligation? I must go to bed. That is a strong obligation. I must go to bed. Like that, students must arrive in class on time. That is the obligation. That is the strong obligation. Then here next is you must stop when the traffic lights are red. You must stop when the traffic lights are red. Then have to. These are the usages of must. And what is the usage of have to? Have to is when we use have to, there is usually a sense of external obligation. Here it is strong obligation. By the usage of must, it is strong obligation. But the usage of have to stands for external obligation. For example, I have to send an urgent email. I have to send an urgent email. That is external obligation. Our next example is I have to take this book back to the library. I have to take this book back to the library. Like that, I have to attend a marriage function next Monday. Like that.